What is going on, everyone? It's Mindless Enigma here, and I'm bringing you a video that I meant to bring you a long time ago. However, due to some technical difficulties, this is the second time I'm recording it, and I haven't really had much of a chance to do it. So this video is long overdue, but let's get right into it. As you can see on the screen right now, we are looking at my Pokemon Sun save with 1,000 hours on it. That playtime there, sitting at 999 hours and 59 minutes. So I just wanted to show this save off because a lot of people have asked me before, you know, what my favorite Pokemon are, what Pokemon I've gotten, and all such things, as well as just I feel bad when people ask me to hunt for something and I can't because I've already hunted it. So I'd love to give you guys an actual comprehensive list of the Pokemon that I found, and I figured that doing it at the whole landmark thing of 1,000 hours would be a great time to do it. So without further ado, guys, let's get right into this save. And one thing I want to say is, there was some consideration when I made this about doing, everything about this save, everything I've done. But I looked into that, and it would still pretty much be this video. I haven't really done competitive stuff. I haven't spent a lot of time doing any of the side stuff in this game. I've spent all of my time collecting Pokemon, just because that's really how I play these games. So, yeah, there really wouldn't have been much more meat to the video if I had done that, and I figured this way I can spend a bit more time showing off the Pokemon to you guys. So let's go ahead and walk over to the PC here. And, okay, so we are not in the right place to be starting this, so let me just go ahead and get that back over to the start here. Probably the fast way to do this, but oh well. So, what I want to start with is just going through my living dex that I have, which is almost complete. There's a few holes here and there that I need to grab Pokemon from USum to complete, but for the most part, this is a pretty comprehensive living dex, and I feel like it's a good way to show it off, because I've had people ask me before what a living Pokedex or a living shiny dex is, and I feel like it's hard to explain. This Rattata also isn't supposed to be here. This is from Ultra Sun Save. I'll just put that in the party for now. But yeah, so looking at this, this is a living Pokedex. It's where you have a copy of every Pokemon in the evolution all at the same time. The hole here is the Decidueye on my team. There's a few holes that are Pokemon in my party and such. But yeah, so, you know, just for an example, it means that, you know, you can complete the Pokedex just by, I am hitting buttons all over the place, guys. I apologize for this. But it means, you know, you could have just an Incineroar and have completed the Pokedex, because it would be a Litten and then a Torracat and then an Incineroar. But a living Pokedex is having each of those entries, you know, living inside your PC or inside Pokemon Bank all at the same time. So that's what I've done here, and I'm just going to kind of breeze through this part of the list because this isn't really the focus. But just so you can see on, you know, the top right of the screen, you can see all the Pokemon going across and how there really aren't any gaps. There are a couple, I think, ones on the next page. No, these are actually just two evolutions. But coming up, you'll see one of the few gaps I have, and it's that type null there, as well as things like that Trevenant and I believe a Haunter or another, a Haunter on the other page is missing because I traded them to Ultra Sun to complete the dex, and I forgot to give them Everstones, so that's something I have to fix. But for the most part, you get the idea. This is what a living dex is, and I spent probably a good chunk of my time when I first got Pokemon Sun getting this. Another thing I'm missing is the Cosmog and Cosmoem that would go here. Those are things I set to pick up from the Ultra games and move across, because, you know, I'm able to complete the dex with Solgaleo and Lunala from these without evolving them. But on the next page, guys, we will start what the main course of this video is going to be. I know most of you guys who have seen this channel before already know what that is, and probably something based on the title. But here we go. Here is what exists of my living shiny Pokedex so far. I will mention that the Pokemon I've caught on stream, if they weren't in Pokemon Sun, have not been moved to Pokemon Sun yet, or may not be. I may just keep them in that game for a while. But without further ado, I want to spend a good bit of time kind of going through all of these Pokemon, and if there's something kind of interesting to mention about them, mentioning it. You know, that's kind of what this video is about. And what I always say shiny thing is about, half of it is, you know, having the Pokemon here and being able to show it off, but the other half's having a story to tell with it, because, you know, otherwise there'd be no reason not to just gen all of them, you know? But alright, so without further ado, these here, the first 9 entries, are the starter Pokemon. I spent a good chunk of time breeding for these. These Rowlets were a pain in the butt because I hadn't quite figured out how to do Masuda method yet. Rowlet was my first Masuda method hunt. So one of the things I kind of learned with that is how to efficiently do my pseudo method, how to collect eggs properly, how to hatch them so that you don't leave any out, because it took me a long time to find my first shiny Rowlet. I'm actually just going to turn on the judge feature with this too. I think that might be a little bit more interesting for a lot of you guys. I don't know, you guys might also notice some stuff as far as, you know, if they have good IVs or not, just because I personally don't know any of that stuff. Sorry, I'm still rambling here. But yeah, so Rowlet was my first pseudo method hunt. I caught, or I didn't catch, but I got three Japanese Pokemon, one of each of the base starter evolutions. That way I could breed with my shiny North American Ditto that I had, because I didn't want to go through all the time at that point to go to Mount Hokulani in a Japanese Pokemon save, or to get a Japanese Ditto, or to try to find one online. It was just easier to take the 40 minutes or whatever it was for each of them to go and get one of them from a brand new Japanese save. And so that's what I did for these, but with Rowlet I wasn't collecting my eggs right, and I was only grabbing the most recent 5 from the batch that I had got. So I probably got plenty of shiny eggs before that I was unaware of, but I was unable to see those because I wasn't hatching them in the right order. So it took me over a week of a lot of hunting, probably 24 plus hours, to get this first Rowlet. And I got the other 2 as well as another 2 actually that I gave away to friends, that, you know, they all shined because I had already got the eggs for them. I just didn't see them because I overlooked them. Moving on, we've got Litten's evolution line, and honestly this is my favorite shiny evolution line of the bunch. Rowlet may be my favorite Pokemon of all time, but you can't deny that Litten design looks amazing. I've said this before on streams and stuff, but the way that base color changes from black to white, I love, like, as a style, kind of like a white base with like an accent color on top of it. Like in this case you got the red, or in some other cases I really like blue on top of it, stuff like that. It just looks really cool to me, and it makes this whole evolution line look really cool. It kind of pulls away from the stereotypical fire starter kind of look that I feel like it had before. But yeah, so moving on, then we got Poplio's line. Personally, probably my least favorite as far as shinies go out of the bunch of these, just because of the inconsistencies here. In terms of like how the shinies change it, they're not bad shinies, don't get me wrong, but it's just not the consistent change that you get with the others, as well as a lot of other evolution lines. Moving on from that, we've got Pikipek and its evolution line. These were a pretty straightforward hunt, if I remember. The only problem is I used to be using a single Lepiberry with Recycle, and one of these little guys had Pickup and took it from me, which kind of ruined the chain, but fortunately they showed up in time. But yeah, so that was one of the... I think this is the hunt that got me to switch over to using Lepiberries just from the bag versus using Recycle to keep them going, just because they had an ability that can mess with it, and it was the first time I encountered it. But yeah, I really like these, and I actually did find a shiny Pikipek, not this one. All of these I had SOS for before this happened, but I found a random encounter shiny Pikipek that I almost ran from. I was looking for a Yungoos, which we can go ahead and move on to these. I was looking for a Yungoos to start an SOS chain off of, and it just showed up. And I was just talking to some friends sitting around, and I happened to look down before I ran, and I was like, that looks more purple than it should be. And I just caught it to be safe, and it turns out I did get a 4th shiny Pikipek, which is kind of cool. But on screen now, we've got our Yungoos and Gumshoos, both my longest and shortest SOS hunts simultaneously. One of them took 1,600 plus encounters, and the other took like 32. I feel like that was just the game's way of kind of apologizing for how long and ridiculously long an SOS hunt took for me with one of these, as well as me having multiple issues with cartridges popping out during this one. I don't know why, but it really only happened during my Yungoos hunt, which was kind of crazy and kind of unfortunate, but I got him in the end, and that's what matters. Up next, we've got Rattata and Eradicate. Some of my first SOS hunts I ever did. I did my Ditto first, I've talked about that before, but Rattata was like the second one, and it almost broke me for it, because it took probably 1,000 encounters or so. I really didn't have a method set at this point. I was all over the place. And so with this Rattata, I don't know exactly how many encounters it took, but I hunted consistently for 3 days before I actually found it. The Eradicate showed up fairly quickly as a Rattata, but it showed up really quickly. Moving on, we've got Caterpie, Metapod, and Butterfree. Sorry about like the back and forth. I would be using the pen, but last time I tried using it, I threw it halfway across the room. But yeah, so I have Caterpie, Metapod, and Butterfree, and I really like Caterpie shiny. It looks really good in my opinion. I really like that gold. I don't know, something about it, just being an all-yellow Pokemon with that little red on it, looks really cool to me. Then we've got Leddyba and Ledian. I don't think there's really any issues I had with these. They were just a pretty straightforward SOS hunt as far as I can remember. Next up, though, we've got Spinarak and Ariados. These two gave me trouble because their poison damage was doing more to me than leftovers were healing on my Decidueye. I had figured out SOS hunting at this point pretty well. These were fairly late on, multiple months in of consistent hunting. But it was just that poison. It was the first time I really had to deal with that, so it kind of stuck out to me, because I did end up failing the chain a couple times because of it. Fortunately, I kind of figured it out eventually and was able to get through it. And that's how these came to be, and I feel like they have pretty good IVs. I don't know. Like I've said, I'm not the greatest when it comes to, like, competitive stuff, so you guys probably know way more than I do. So please, if you see any Pokemon that stand out and are good, point them out in the description to me, or in the comments. It would be very much appreciated. Moving on, we've got Pichu, Pikachu, and Alolan Raichu. I've mentioned this before, but Pikachu not as much. Pikachu actually does have a pretty decently differentiated shiny, but Pichu's not the greatest in my opinion as far as that goes, especially when it's not directly next to another non-shiny Pichu. If it's next to another one, you can tell that it's different, but it really doesn't have that great of a design, and it doesn't stand out enough for my tastes personally. But as you move on through the evolution line, Pikachu gets better, and Alolan Raichu, I believe also normal Raichu, are fantastic looking compared to their non-shiny counterparts, so I can't really complain about them, but Pichu definitely stands out on my list of because for the sake of them not having better and more differentiated shinies. Next up, we've got the Grubbin line, Mr. Grubbs, for anyone who was in the Ultra Moon playthrough. This isn't Mr. Grubbs, but Mr. Grubbs wasn't a shiny. But Grubbin is honestly up there as one of my favorite Alola Pokemon, just because I have good memories with it, be it that Ultra Moon playthrough, or be it these shiny hunts. During these shiny hunts, while Grubbin isn't necessarily my favorite, like, none of these Pokemon are on my list, I don't believe, of, like, top 10 favorite shinies or anything like that. It showed up really quickly for me, and honestly that kind of stands out as a cool thing on my mind. You can see that with the fact that it only has 3 perfect IVs, and one's very close but not quite there. That's like how quickly we got these in the hunt for the most part. Most of the rest of them have 4, but like all of them happened in, I want to say, under 100. There were not many of these hunts that took very long for me. Next up though, we've got Bonsly and Pseudo-legendary. These were a pain in the butt. Sorry about the stuttering. I'm trying to do this in one take. A pain in the butt to hunt because they have the ability Sturdy. It just makes SOSing so much harder when you can't one-hit KO them. I figured out a way around that at this point. I forget who it was who I was talking to in stream when we figured it out, but using spikes makes this so much easier. Did it for future hunts that I had, but at the time of this hunt, I had not thought of that, so it really took it out of me as far as a lot of the hunting went. It was a very hard hunt to do and very difficult just to kind of keep motivated because it kept slowing the momentum down on its own. Next up is Happiny. I'm really lucky that I have this one because Happiny is another one on that list I mentioned with Pichu where you just cannot tell. You cannot tell if it's shiny unless you see it sparkle. And because this Pokemon can't be called in by itself, it has to be called in by other baby Pokemon, you never get a point of reference. So it could look shiny, but that could just be because it's night in the game. And I'm very fortunate that I happened to see this one while I was hunting for it at one point. Like, I noticed it and went, I should pay attention, and saw the sparkle, and I'm very glad I did. Fortunately, we can hunt Chansey and Blissey by themselves now, which is going to make the rest of this hunt so much easier when I get to it. Up next, we have Munchlax and Snorlax. These were a pretty straightforward hunt. The only thing about Munchlax is that it has leftovers. It's going to have leftovers. It's going to be healing itself all battle long, which means that you're not going to, like, just be able to false swipe it once and be done, depending on how often you're switching up your chain. But for the most part, it was a pretty fun, pretty straightforward hunt. Not really any complaints aside from just that one little mention about leftovers. Up next is Wingull and Pelipper. This was a hunt that constantly had me thinking I had a shiny, because Wingull just has like a few little green spots on it that mark it being shiny, it's really, really hard to tell, you know, that it's shiny during the cloud of like smoke that pops up whenever it lands on the ground, especially when you add in the fact that that cloud of smoke has little green sparkles in it. So they'd appear right on its wings, and I think it was shiny, and then the shininess would essentially go away and it'd just be a normal Pokemon then. So there were many, many times where I was watching as they dropped in and just thought it was shiny because I was paying attention. And I'm really glad I got it at the end of the day, but yeah, that was the one notable thing I really have from these two when I was hunting for them. Up next is Meowth and Persian. This Meowth obviously showed up very, very quickly. I don't even know how few encounters this was, but it was a very, very quick hunt as far as this one Meowth went, and this Persian was a fairly average one. There really wasn't much to note with these hunts. They didn't break my chains, they didn't do anything really difficult. It was a pretty straightforward hunt as far as they go. I will mention Alolan Persian, not my favorite as far as Pokemon goes. It just kind of looks like it ate a bee and is having a reaction from getting stung. That's just my take on it. Unfortunately, like, it's not a terrible design, but it's definitely not my favorite. Next up, we have Smeargle. This Pokemon I initially caught hoping to have a shiny hunting Pokemon. That would have been so cool in my opinion, but unfortunately it was not meant to be. This Pokemon has the ability Moody, which kind of, it doesn't make it impossible to hunt with it, but it really slows down the potential for hunts because, you know, it's changing its, you know, stats every turn, and you gotta wait for that to happen. And so it really just breaks that momentum, and I was kind of upset about that after I had spent so long hunting for it. I broke the chain 3 times for inexplicable reasons. I don't even know what happened. I just know that 3 times I had ruined the chain, and it took way longer to hunt this Pokemon than it should have, just to have it followed up by not really being good for any kind of SOS hunting. Up next, we have Mr. Krabs and Crabominable. Our 2 Pokemon, we hunted these on stream. The first Pokemon I believe I successfully hunted for on stream with my 3DS capture cards. So these 2 Pokemon have sentimental value for that reason, being as, you know, I was able to hunt them with all of you guys, which is really cool, and I always look forward to hunting more stuff with you guys. And, you know, these are also just 2 cool Pokemon in general. I really like, you know, how the gloves feel more themed to be like boxing gloves with this design of the Pokemon. This page is pretty sparsely filled because I haven't gotten around to a lot of these ones. I think a lot of these are some ones that are going to be difficult to hunt. I'm not 100% sure though. But we've got Mankey and Primeape. I remember hunting these at the end of the semester last year. Like the end of spring 2017. I just remember hunting these around the time that I moved back home from my apartment then, because I know I caught one while I was at school and one while I was at home. There's really not much else of note about these, to be completely honest. They were a pretty straightforward hunt. I don't think they were able to do anything that really messed with me, especially being as I use a ghost type for my hunting. Up next though, we've got, if I can actually put my cursor on it, Cottony and Whimsicott. We have 2 Pokemon that both of them went ridiculously over odds for me. I don't know what was up with them. They just did not want to shine for me. And that was a real shame because I actually really like Whimsicott's shiny design. I don't know what about it I really like, but just that color scheme works really well in my opinion. They weren't really tough hunts, they were just very long. Up next, we've got Psyduck and Golduck, 2 Pokemon that I'm very happy to have in my collection. I don't know, something about Psyduck's shiny is great. Golduck's is okay, I'm not a fan of the red, I'll be honest. But, I don't know, these Pokemon, again, very straightforward, not much of note about the hunt itself. But I remember almost messing up one of them. I forget what was going on, but I ruined the way I was doing the chain, and as I was trying to fix it absent-mindedly, I almost didn't notice the shiny appearing, which I feel is kind of fitting to be like completely confused when a Psyduck shows up, I guess. I don't know, I feel like that's fitting. And up next we got Magikarp and Gyarados. Honestly, some Pokemon I really like the shinies of, but obviously Gyarados kind of loses a little bit of the special value that it would have just because of Lake of Rage and whatnot. But it's a lot of people's first shiny, so I guess it holds sentimental value for a lot of people in that regard. But Magikarp's shiny, for how kind of much of a joke Pokemon it is a very very high one on my list in terms of, like, I like the shiny because it kind of fits a theme a little bit. Up next is Machop, Machoke, and Machamp. These hunts, again, very straightforward hunts, not much of note there. They all went by really quickly, and I used them as a break from my first Cranidos hunt because that one took me so long, I just needed to take a break and go and hunt this during it. Like, that's how long Cranidos was taking, was I was able to hunt an entire line of, like, 3 Pokemon while just calling it a break still. Up next is Roggenrola. This is one of the few Pokemon on this list that I've actually caught since passing 1,000 hours. I was doing a few hunts on and off. This was actually not in here before the first attempt at this video, but since then I've had some time and I went out and hunted this. This is the one that I used these spikes for to keep sturdy from becoming a problem. It worked really well and I really like this shiny, and I really actually like Gigalith, and I can't wait to have one of those. Up next is Rockruff, and then the 2 Lycanrocs. And they're really cool Pokemon in my opinion. I need to go after an own tempo Rockruff so I can get the Dusk form. That'll be a hunt that probably happens on stream sometime soon if you're watching this video near the time it comes out. But yeah, these are honestly pretty nice Pokemon. I tried going after Midnight form Lycanroc in Sun, which is technically possible, but it has a really, really low call rate. And due to that, it kept KOing itself from struggle, so I ended up just catching another Rockruff and transferring it to my Moon, which at the time, as you can tell, was in Japanese. Next up is Spinda, one of the most unique Pokemon on the list just because of the gimmick that is Spinda. It's fantastic, it is mine, and it is probably one of a kind. This hunt was pretty straightforward. It did take a little while, but hey, like I said, it's most likely a one-of-a-kind Pokemon. Up next is Nemo, our Wishy-Washy that we caught on stream, the 3rd Pokemon to appear on this list from the streams. I'm not the biggest fan of the shiny, especially when looking at it on something other than my capture card. Because when I look at it on the capture card, like on a window on my computer, I can really tell it apart from the non-shiny form, but on my new 2DS XL, the screen's a little bit more washed out, and it doesn't pop as much, which is really unfortunate. It means that the shiny doesn't really look shiny when it's on the device it's meant to be seen on, which is kind of disappointing and kind of just not a good design in my opinion. But Love Disc, on the other hand, I think is a really, really nice shiny design. Something about the orange colors here I really like. Something about orange and blue. Don't know why those 2 colors tend to make the top of my list. I don't know, especially when they transfer pretty much anything that like the pink shinies or pink regular Pokemon turn into as shinies. Sorry how rambly this video is being like pre-recorded and whatnot. Up next is Corsola, which again, continuing with that like pink Pokemon that turn into a shiny. Something about it I really, really like. And yeah, Corsola is included in that for sure. This Pokemon was actually kind of hard to hunt for because it can heal itself a bit, but it's not too big of a deal, and I'm glad I hunted it. It showed up pretty quickly for me, and honestly, is one of my top Pokemon, I gotta say, in terms of shinies. Up next is Shelder. Shelder and Cloyster are both on this list. I hunted them over last summer in 2017, and Shelder I really, really like. Cloyster I wish kept the orange color. I don't know, I like the matte. I kind of like that matte blue. I wish we could combine it and maybe make it a matte orange, but that orange shell on Shelder looks fantastic in my opinion. Up next we've got Bagon, Shelgon, and Salamence. These were really straightforward hunts, even though I guess just because I expected Salamence to be more of a tough and difficult hunt. It honestly didn't put up too much of a fight in my opinion as far as like taking time to be the shinies. I think I caught 1 per day while I was hunting them, and it was a very straightforward and very fun hunt. This is one of my favorite pseudo-legendaries, and being a Gen 3 kid, having like the Gen 3 dragon as a shiny is amazing, and I'm so glad that I have it. Up next is Eevee and all of the evolutions. These I spent like a week straight hunting all of the Eevees. I managed to get I think 9 Eevees in 7 days. And it was kind of that task that I decided I needed to get it done, and I wanted to get it done. Was very, very happy with all of these. Honestly, my favorites out of these is not really a surprise. Umbreon and Sylveon. Umbreon's my favorite, and Sylveon I have to appreciate for the fact that they were able to make it look so different from the normal Pokemon using only the colors of the normal form. Something about that is a really creative design in my opinion, and it works really, really well for this Pokemon. Up next is Eddie and Dirty Dan, the Mudsdale and Mudbray that we caught on stream. Both of these Pokemon, again, glad to have hunted it with you, and I can't wait to hunt more with you guys in the future. Then we have Dupiner and Araquanid, which actually seem to be getting a lot of praise from the community and stuff, and I really kind of like the uniqueness of their designs. Not the biggest fan of their shiny forms, I gotta be honest, you guys. They're not bad though, they aren't bad, I gotta say. You know, I love having them in my collection, and there's nothing about them that necessarily I, like, hate. I just don't, they're not my favorites. They're not my favorites, I gotta say, and I don't think there's really much notable about their hunts. They just kind of went by, I wanna say. Then we've got Celery and Pop-Tart, our Lurantis and Fomantis, both of which hunted on stream again. You know, these ones, I think I'm right in saying that these showed up very, very quickly and almost unexpectedly. I was really expecting these hunts to take longer than they did, even though they did get up, you know, into a good range of SOS hunts, but they showed up fairly quickly. And in the location we hunted them, they didn't know any kind of, like, HP restoring moves and whatnot, which made the hunts go by very, very quickly. On the other hand, though, we've got Morlul and Shiinotic here, both of which were a pain in the butt to get. They have so many ways of restoring health and draining yours. It's not even funny. It's insane how much time it takes to hunt these. And I got lucky. They showed up fairly quickly for me, but if it had gone on much longer, it would have driven me crazy, to be honest. But it was totally worth it. I love Morlul's shiny. You know, I don't know. I tend to like cooler colors better when it comes to the shinies and whatnot. But something about this Morlul looks really great in my opinion. And again, guys, I apologize for the stuttering and stuff. Hopefully I get better at doing these pre-recorded videos in the future if I continue to do more. But next on the list, we've got Paris and Parasect, two Pokemon that I actually tried hunting these in an attempt to get another shiny answer for my team. I wanted one of them to have the hidden ability so that I could get a Parasect with Damp, because Parasect is one of the few Pokemon that can have the ability Damp and learn False Swipe, which makes them perfect for hunting things that know self-destruct. I really wanted it so I could go after Geodude and whatnot, but from the looks of it, I'm just going to have to go and find a different one in the wild. And up next on the list is Feebas and Milotic. My favorite shiny of all time is Milotic. That's not a big secret, talk about it on stream all the time. But as soon as I knew what Milotic's shiny looked like, I went out and started hunting for Feebas. I was hoping I'd get a female one so I could get, you know, the longer eyebrows or hair, whatever you really want to call it. I'm assuming it's hair, but it's coming from around the eyebrows, so I'm not sure. But I really like that, and it's longer on the female one, so that's what I went for. And yeah, I'm really glad to have gotten these because they're fantastic, and I am so happy to have them, and my friends are even jealous because why wouldn't you be? It's a shiny Milotic. Up next is the Fletchling line, Fletchling, Fletchinder, and Talonflame. These hunts just kind of took a bit of time. They weren't the easiest hunts, you know, they weren't doing anything that I couldn't handle, but they just took forever. I don't know why. Fletchlings did not want to shine for me. But yeah, that's those. And moving on, we've got Cubone and Marowak. These were straightforward. Not really much happened with them. They just kind of were hunted. Especially being as Cubone's a normal Cubone, there's no Alolan form of it. It really didn't have much it could do to my team to throw things for a loop. Up next is Kangaskhan, one of my random encounter shinies. I was trying to catch a regular Cubone just for my living dex, but the Cubone broke out of a Pokeball and called in for help and brought down this Kangaskhan. And when it showed up, I stared at it for a minute in disbelief. I couldn't possibly fathom having caught a shiny Kangaskhan. Like, that was just crazy to me, in my opinion. You know, for it to randomly show up, especially without even attempting to hunt for it. But I'm glad that it did, because I really didn't want to have to try to hunt one in the wild, because again, it would have to be called down by a Cubone for the most part. Moving on, we've got Stuffle and Beware, two Pokemon that I really like from Alola, especially with their shiny forms. That, like, yellow-orange color that they have. I don't know, again, it changes from pink to that, and I don't know why I like that so much. It's not like I have something against pink. It's just, they look really good in my opinion. I'm glad I have them, and their simplistic designs even make them even look better to me. Moving on, we've got Bounsweet, Steenie, and Serena. I really like Bounsweet, and I hadn't looked at what the evolutions looked like shiny until I was evolving my Bounsweets into them. And they're not as good as I was hoping, but they're still great. I really like the designs on these Pokemon. But one thing that I had issue with the Bounsweet hunt was I kept looking for it in the wrong patch of grass. It was like a 40% encounter rate, and it took me 2 hours to realize I was doing something wrong. I just thought I was extremely unlucky. But I was in the wrong section of the lush jungle, and that was a problem. So if you hunt this one, make sure you're actually in the right patch of grass to find it. Up next is Comfey, which is a Pokemon that, you know, I was really nervous to go into hunting because I wasn't 100% sure I was going to notice that it was shiny, just because there's so many colors to it that honestly I wouldn't have noticed it being shiny in the wild if I wasn't specifically going for it, and I am glad that I did because I really like its design. But yeah, it was one of the ones I was very nervous about screwing up. Up next, we've got ourselves a Wimpod and Golisopod, two of my more successful Masuda method hunts. Most of my Masuda method hunts for some reason go way over odds. I don't know, I guess the eggs just don't like me, not sure, but yeah, so I have Wimpod and Golisopod here. I caught them both in the same day through Masuda method, which I was very happy about, and those red accents on them look very nice in my opinion. Next we have Sandygast and Palossand. These Pokemon make my list for some of my favorite shinies because they are fantastic looking shinies. It's really easy to make black shinies look very good, and just bonus points for making them, you know, stick with the theme, you know, because you can see black sand on beaches and stuff, so it's really cool to see Game Freak stick with that and make a really cool shiny that keeps the theme of like colors that could potentially be on this Pokemon in the wild. Up next is the infamous Cranidos and Rampardos. I don't know why I said Ariados, but yeah, Cranidos and Rampardos. These Pokemon took me so long to get. Like, months of SOS hunting for them. I don't know what was up, but this Rampardos is actually the hunt that carried my save over 1,000 hours. I spent so much time hunting for these. I want to say that I put a very low estimate of 35 hours into one of these hunts of just sitting doing the Masuda method. It's crazy. None of my hunts have gone on this long before this, but something about these just took so much time, and it was both of them. Normally you have something like that Yungoos and Gumshoos I mentioned where they don't take, at least one of them doesn't take too long, you know, it kind of averages out, but these two just didn't. I don't know what was up with them. Moving on, we've got Pyukumuku. This is a Pokemon I actually recommend a lot of people go an SOS hunt if you have not already. It's a really unique looking Pokemon. It's, you know, a cool design. I really like it personally, and it's a fairly straightforward hunt. There's not much that can go wrong. The only interesting thing it's got going for it is innards out, and that really doesn't do any more damage than a normal physical attack would do to you. So as long as you're prepared to be healing throughout battles anyway, which you should for SOS hunting, Pyukumuku won't give you any troubles and is worth it in the long run. Up next is my first shiny Pokemon ever, the shiny Ditto I SOS'd for on Mount Hokulani. It was in an attempt to get a shiny Rowlet more quickly, but I hadn't done any research, so I thought that, hey, maybe getting a shiny parent will make the offspring more likely to be shiny, which hasn't been a thing since Gen 2, but it, you know, it was worth it. It got me hooked on shiny hunting in the long run. I'm glad I SOS'd for it, because, yeah, I just caught the shiny hunting bug from there, and there's been no looking back. Up next is Minior, which is another very quick SOS hunt for me. It actually showed up in the same day as the Wimpod and Golisopod before, and I guess Cranidos is just kind of payback for that from the RNG, because I got these three so quickly, and then those ones took forever, but I am so glad I got this one. You know, it's such a cool design, and honestly I'm considering using the excuse of getting different sprites in the PC as a reason to hunt for more of these in the future. Up next, this page has got only Pokemon we've hunted on stream: Peekaboo, the Mimikyu, and then we've got Snowy and John, the Alolan Vulpix and Alolan Ninetales. These Pokemon, I like all of them. I'm really glad I was able to hunt these on stream with you guys. They're really fun, and honestly, this has got to be my favorite on the page. You know, I like that pink color that it's got going for it. And, you know, Snowy's also the Vulpix that showed up in like 45 encounters the same day we got our first brawler. So that's always cool. Up next, these are all Pokemon, or most of these are actually Pokemon I've gotten since the 1,000 hours, or at least this row. This Execute and Executor I've gotten since the 1,000 hours. You know, they were pretty straightforward hunts. I was kind of hoping, because it was raining during them, that I'd get a Castform or a Sliggoo to call in as shiny, but that didn't happen. But I got the Pokemon I was actually hunting for, so can't be upset. And then we have Hertz, the Jangmo-o that we hunted for, or Jangmo-o. I don't know why. These names mix me up a little bit. For whatever reason, they really shouldn't, but they do. But we've got the Jangmo-o Hertz that we Masuda methoded for on stream, because you can't actually SOS for a Jangmo-o, unfortunately. It doesn't call in for itself as help, it calls in for Hackmo-os. So we got a Hackmo-o and a Kommo-o, both as Hackmo-os through SOS hunting. And honestly, Hackmo-o was not my favorite while I was hunting for it, but as soon as I had it, it looks fantastic. Something about the angle that it's standing at in battle just doesn't appeal to me, but like right here, or when you throw down battle yourself, it looks great in my opinion. And Kommo-o is an extension of that as well. It looks really cool, I really like it, but Hackmo-o is my favorite of those three. Moving on here, these I did catch. These I did catch before the start of, or before I hit 1,000 hours. I caught these again last summer, Dratini, Dragonair, and Dragonite. These are more of a break from that SOS hunt I was doing, or Masuda method hunt I was doing for Cranidos, excuse me. But yeah, so these were really cool. I think Dragonite's a good Pokemon as far as competitive goes. I don't know if like it's gotten cut in the wrong areas or not, but let me know in the comments, guys, because you guys know way more about this stuff than I do, and I would love to get into competitive with some of these shinies. But yeah, so these hunts were all really straightforward. I actually caught this Dragonair as a Dragonair, which made me really nervous because I caught it before Dratini, and I didn't want to end up with 3 Dragonairs and no Dratinis, because it would have meant I had to keep hunting. But I did get the Dratini, and I really, really like him. Dragonair and Dratini are my favorite of the 3, like the 2 favorite of the 3. Dragonite, I don't know. I've always said this, I don't think it really fits in the evolution line too well, but oh well, they're still all fantastic Pokemon. Then we've got the Tapu Koko that came from the event, the mystery gift event that happened over the summer. It's in a Cherish Ball. I wish I could have gotten it in a Pokeball, but we'll just have to wait and see if these ever become non-shiny locked to hunt again in the future. Moving on, we have a page that has things like, these are the hidden ability starters that I can eventually do Masudas with, a few Island Scan Pokemon that I've found, a couple of extra shinies. This is that Pick-a-Peck I mentioned that I just randomly encountered. This Golduck I randomly encountered as well when I was hunting for, or not when I was hunting, but when I was leveling up a Sandygast to become a Palisand. So I had 2 shinies on screen at the same time, and you know, I caught this one because hey, why not catch more shinies if you can? Up next, we've got Mokuro, Ashimari, and Nyampi. The Japanese starters that I used for hunting for Masuda method hunting for them is shinies in this copy of the game. I got these while my Moon game was set to Japanese. I just caught them, and as soon as I could trade them over to Sun, I did, and then reset the game and went back into it. I think this is it, guys. I think that was it as far as my Pokemon go, and I believe that is it. So, yeah, guys. Again, it's been a fun time hunting all these Pokemon with you guys. I know a lot of these I hunted by myself, but I can't believe this save actually hit 1,000 hours. That is crazy. It is the longest I have ever played a single game, and let alone a single save. Yeah, so that was all of my shiny Pokemon and all of the Pokemon I've caught in not in Ultra Sun, in Sun. And there's so many more I've caught in Ultra Sun and stuff to go through at some point. But yeah, so I'm glad I was able to share this 1,000-hour save with you guys. I'm going to continue hunting Pokemon here, continue hunting Pokemon in USUM, and I can't wait to catch you all in the next one. So, see you guys.